Give me a second. I just did my mascara, and Queen Emma knows it took like a good amount of time. Happy birthday, Wyatt! Oh my God, that's so sad. I can't. That's so sad. It's sad and happy. Also, it's weird to be 24 with a 6-year-old. That's weird. A weird phenomenon. Wyatt picked out a cake with Ariel on top. She wants her specifically with when her tail is sort of flippy at the end, and she wants to make sure Flounder's there. Also, when I was picking out decorations with her, she was deeply offended by the fact that I thought a mermaid decoration was sufficient. And she looked at me and said, "I didn't say mermaid, Mom. I said Ariel." So, coming up on today's episode, the Phillies' first playoff game is this weekend, which means it's the perfect time to get honest about one of the most exciting phenomenons in all of sports, Red October. After that, I'm going to be joined by supermodel, designer, entrepreneur, and advocate for body confidence. You guessed it, someone else I have no business talking to, Ashley Graham. But first, the Phillies have officially clinched a bye in the playoffs, and their first game is this Saturday. So for any real ones who don't know the lore of Red October, I'm going to get honest about it right now. Can I Be Honest is brought to you today by our friends at Peloton. Check out the new Cross-Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. Red October, for those who don't know, is when the Philadelphia Phillies make the playoffs. It is an environment that is unmatched, okay? That stadium, Citizens Bank Park, ends up being good vibes only. And I swear the electricity that the players can feel from the stands end up in their bats, okay? I'm not saying that we take part, but I really feel like we might have something to do with it. A couple years ago, Jason and Travis went to Red October. We saw a couple home runs at that game. To be clear, I was at the game with Jason and Travis, but you guys know I love to sink into a hedge. So I was actually at the back so that they could be at the front. And to whoever sniped me and put it on TikTok, that was rude. I was minding my own business. And when the Jumbotron hit the two of them, I was nowhere to be seen. Because that's how I like it. The best Phillies playoff game I've ever been to was the game where I met Charlie Manuel and his wife, Missy. For those of you who don't know, Charlie was the manager of the team when the Philadelphia Phillies won the 2008 World Series. I always said growing up that if I met, let's say, Beyonce, I wouldn't cry. I would be excited to meet her, but I wouldn't cry. If I met Charlie Manuel, I would cry. And I can confirm that I teared up. It was embarrassing. I was pregnant, and I did blame it on the fact that I was pregnant, that I was tearing up. But in the picture, I'll see if I can send it to Queen Emma. In the picture where I met Charlie Manuel, you can see my forehead vein popping like you wouldn't believe. It was embarrassing to a degree that I cannot even explain. He is lovely and I love him and it's lovely. And go Phils. My favorite Philly right now is the Philly Fanatic. Also, oh my gosh, last week Benny was looking for something and she said the Famagic instead of the Fanatic. And I said, you know what? He is magic. And that's how I feel about that. I'm so glad that my love of him has made its way down into my children. That's how you know it's real. That's it for Can I Be Honest, brought to you by Peloton. Next up, Doom Scroll of the week. First up on Doom Scroll, I've mentioned being a type C mom on this podcast, but I just stumbled across a TikTok that perfectly describes what that actually means. Queen Emma, the clip, please.
The flounder doesn't go in animals. He goes in people and characters, the characters. I can see why you would do that, though. Thanks so much for having us over. Sorry, neither of my kids have shoes. If I don't own a baby nail clipper, I usually just kind of nibble mine babies off. I can do it for yours if you feel comfortable with that. No, get shoes that don't need socks. I don't know where any clean socks are.
Oh my God. This TikTok made me feel so seen. The balance between having some things done very well and thought out and prepared, and other things being like, no, you need to wear Crocs. I don't have socks, or I don't know where the clean socks are. Or like, the clean socks are in the dryer and they're not dry yet. I need you to put on sandals. Like, let's get this show on the road. At any given point, if you look at my car, it is the epitome of a type C mom. I have a varying option of sizes of diapers. So at any given, like right now, I can guarantee you that there is at least one size 2 diaper, probably 3 to 4 size 3 diapers, 2 size 7 diapers, and a handful of 4s. Now, is anyone still in a 2? No. Is anyone still in a 3? No. But also, if you fold down the front of a 7 far enough, it can fit a 4. And that's on being a type C mom. Their jackets also in the car. Because why would we put on our jackets in the house to walk 10 steps out the door to the car, which most likely myself or my husband has started to warm it up, to then take off your jackets to then get buckled in your seat? That doesn't make any sense. Next on Doom Scroll, I just discovered TikToker Betsy Kenny, who has a series of hilarious Philly ASMR videos, and I needed to show the real ones her Philly accent. Queen Emma, the clip, please.
How you doing on? What parish did you go to? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Was his brother in your grade? Roy's horrible.
Accurate. All of those are things that I have heard or said multiple times in my life. Maybe with an interchangeable name, but absolutely things I have heard or said in my life. The slight scraping noise you can hear for our audio listeners, that is water ice. That's her white plastic spoon in her Rita's water ice. The accent, I'd give it a good 11. Speaking of Philly accents, Queen Emma is telling me that there's a new Philly is actually from Berwyn, I believe, which is it's not far from us. You can throw a rock and hit it. I will watch. I do know that the beginning of the first episode, we went hard. Okay. The daughter has a job. The job is at a water ice place. It feels like we went a little aggressively obvious in the beginning. But from what I've heard so far, I like it. I haven't gotten that far in though, so I'll get back to you on that. That's it for Doom Scroll of the week. Next up, we had an incident happen recently. It really was. It was a sad day in our house. And it made me want to bring back our segment, Tiny Human Question of the Week, brought to you by Perplexity. Anyone with kids knows that kids ask a lot of questions. It's a lot of questions, and it's not always just why, but it's often followed up with that. Every single one gets at least 2 whys. Yep, we're answering a lot of questions in our house. This Tiny Human Question of the Week, well, it got a little dark. It got a little dark in our house. We were coming home from school pickup, and Wyatt and I were walking up the front walkway, and there was a butterfly. And he or she was only flapping one wing. And needless to say, we took the butterfly inside. We offered the butterfly some sugar water, which it did indulge in, and then we took it back outside to lay peacefully under the bushes where it said its goodbyes, if you will. And we had to have a brief service for the butterfly. Now, Ellie wanted to say a prayer, but she launched into something else that resembled the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the butterfly. Where does he live?
In nature.
In nature was my answer. So let's get Ellie a real answer to this question. Queen Emma, can you please pull up Perplexity and ask, where do butterflies live? I said in nature. It was the fastest I could think. But I was stumped because I didn't know how deep we needed to get in that moment. She was deep in her prayer, aka Pledge of Allegiance to the butterfly. So some other answers, Perplexity is telling me I could have given: forests, meadows, prairies, woodlands. These are great options. Coastal areas, including sand dunes. I did not know that. That's actually interesting. Key requirements: warm climates and sunlight for activity. Dude, same. Host plants for caterpillars to feed during the larval stage. So, here's the deal. That would be milkweed. I know that. A couple years ago, we planted milkweed to try and attract the butterflies. Now I know I can go back to Ellie and talk to her about the fact that they live many places, and we can dive a little deeper into that outside of, again, her Pledge of Allegiance to the butterfly. That does it for Tiny Human Question of the Week, brought to you by Perplexity. Now, before we get to our guests, all the real ones know this is generally a very light show, something fun to take your mind off of things, but I've also shared that I started this podcast to be able to bring attention to issues I genuinely care about. And another cause that I care deeply about is women's health. And October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. I will start this segment by saying that if this is a sensitive subject for you, you may want to skip ahead. It's always available in the description of our show that you can actually click ahead in minutes to the next section. So please be advised that this is where I am going to discuss my miscarriage, which I previously mentioned on the show. But I wanted to share some more details because when I experienced my miscarriage, I felt like a bunch of people came forward to support me and offer words of encouragement or love. And in so, they divulged that they also had experienced losses. And it is interesting how sometimes it takes you experiencing a loss for people to open up about their own. And I don't necessarily think that we should always have to be prompted to share what is very, very normal in trying to grow your family. Starting from the beginning, Jason and I started, it sounds weird to say that you're trying to have a family because it just means that you're doing the deed without protection. That's exactly what we're doing. And after a few months of trying, without success, we had our first positive pregnancy test. I say we. Jason didn't pee on the stick. I had my first positive pregnancy test. I believe it was in August of 2018. I went to appointments. Normally, I went to I think it was a 6-week appointment, and the baby was measuring what would have been a few days late. And they said it's still within normal limits. We will see you back for your 12-week appointment. And I scheduled it for the week following that, which would have been my 13-week appointment, because we had travel plans. We were planning to go when the Eagles played in London, and then follow that up during their bye week immediately after in Ireland. So we were going with family. It was going to be a time where we were around everyone. And so I was very much aware of the rate at which people lose pregnancies. And so I was very guarded about telling people outside of my immediate circle. And I ended up, by the time we went to London, I was supposed to be 12 weeks. And we made it a point to surprise Jason's mom and dad when we were there by pretending to take a photo and telling them that we were expecting. Okay. Hold on. I got this. We surprised Jason's mom and dad with a video. We also surprised Jason's Aunt Judy and his grandmother, Grandma Mary, when we were in Cleveland. We surprised Travis with little baby booties. All of these interactions were recorded for like memory purposes. And I think the thought process was like, yes, maybe one day we'll sort of clip them together and share them. I emphasize the fact that like this still hurts after having 4 children, because it does. And it's okay for people who are still in their journey and not yet having gotten over the hump of like getting to meet your tiny humans that you're making. I am so sorry. For people who have experienced loss and who still have gotten to meet some of their tiny humans, I am also sorry, because it doesn't not hurt. When we got back from our family trip to Ireland, I went to my regularly scheduled what was supposed to be my 13-week appointment. And I went into one of the regular rooms, not the ultrasound room, and they tried to do the Doppler. And the minute, I would say, it felt like everything went into slow motion and they could not find the baby on the Doppler. And at 13-ish weeks, they should. And the nurse that was doing it was so sweet and very quick on her feet to say like, oh, sometimes like they hide down below your pelvis. We will take you in for an ultrasound and we'll be able to find them better. And I could just tell, I don't know if it was like doom and gloom of like, I was almost expecting it, or what, but I remember being like, oh, there isn't a heartbeat. Like you didn't find one because there isn't one. I'm trying my best not to let it get to like a full gasping situation. So they quickly took me into the ultrasound room and did a vaginal ultrasound to confirm that there was... I have literally told this story so many times. They confirmed that there was no heartbeat, and they estimated that the baby had stopped developing between, believe it was 9 and 10 weeks. So they couldn't tell me, essentially I had had what you would refer to as a missed miscarriage. It means that your body did not realize that the pregnancy was no longer viable. And so the shitty part is that you still have the placenta, which means you're still getting the hormones. And so you still feel like shit and you still feel like you're pregnant, and you're not. And so I ended up it was a shitty day. It was a shitty day because it was Jason's birthday. And I still remember my OB, of course, I speak very highly of them every chance I get because I love them dearly. And this was one of the reasons that I fell in love with them as human beings. But my OB was very calm and very supportive and delivered the news in the kindest way that she possibly could. And I ended up, because of how far along I was and because of potential risk with other options, we scheduled a D&E for 2 days later, that Wednesday. I still remember going to the car and calling my mom, which is not a good idea when you are heaving crying in the car. But I called my mom and told her that I couldn't tell Jason because it was his birthday, which seems very silly. It seems very silly because obviously I'm going to tell my husband what happened. And I did. And it was hard for both of us. I will say that having had that experience then messed with my brain for every consecutive pregnancy. So for Wyatt, we did not share that we were pregnant until I was after 20 weeks. I, for consecutive pregnancies, waited till I was at least 16 weeks. I Googled almost every week what the percentage likelihood was that a baby could survive, which sounds really dark. I literally did it for Finn. We're fine. Here we go. The things that helped me get through it were talking about it. I am a person who is an open book. Obviously, I talked about it with my mom, who also had experienced a loss. I talked about it with just about everyone. Because since that point, I have had friends or people that I know who have experienced a loss. And like I said, it never leaves you. And I always like to tell people, comparing miscarriages, comparing infant loss, comparing any of this between women, comparing is apples and oranges. It is scarring and stays with you in a way that is yours only. And whether you have a loss at 6 weeks or 13 weeks or whenever, that loss is real. So I think it's important to have people around you that understand what you're going through and who are in on the struggles that you're having and feeling. And I think it's really important to have an open dialogue with your doctors. I'm so sorry if you've experienced this. Like, truly sorry. Because it sucks. And there's really no other way to say it. It just sucks. This October, and actually every month of the year, women's health should be taken seriously and prioritized so that every woman going through something like this can get the care that she needs. I will be donating to some organizations that have made this their mission, and I hope that you will do the same. We're going to take a quick break here and then return to today's amazing guest. She's the perfect example of a woman uplifting other women, which we're all about around here. Guys, it's supermodel Ashley Graham.
Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce sparked retirement rumors after Super Bowl 58, but he quickly made it clear he wanted at least one more NFL season. With his 36th birthday approaching on October 5th, many believe this year could be his final chapter. Whenever he does step away, Kansas City will face the challenge of replacing one of the most impactful players in franchise history. Head coach Andy Reid has long prepared for that possibility, carefully developing depth at tight end. Still, Kelce's eventual departure will leave a major void, both on the field and in leadership. As he looks ahead to life beyond football, including his future with Taylor Swift, the team must plan for the next era. One projection from USA Today writer Erden Oli suggests Kansas City could target Oregon tight end Kenyon Suddy in the 2026 NFL Draft with the 20th overall pick. Suddy, listed at 6'3" and 245 pounds, is viewed as a strong blocker with impressive speed and versatility, traits that could make him a long-term successor to Kelce. Despite the speculation, Kelce remains highly productive. In ESPN analyst Jeremy Fowler's annual rankings, he was listed as the league's 5th best tight end entering the season. He continues to be a red zone threat and led the Chiefs with 133 targets last year. One anonymous NFC executive summed it up simply: he's still awesome. On the podcast New Heights, Kelce recently joked with his brother